Cheers, everybody. Welcome to Beer Guys Radio. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us this week. We're going to drink some beers. We're going to have some conversation, have a good time. I just got mine poured, as you can see right here.
Wow.
Totally see it. Yes,
It looks
very
so great.
clear.
Does it look? It's very, very nice
Wow.
beer.
I'm going
there.
to start doing that with everything.
I'll
Did you
enjoy
see
that.
my great new Lexus
Yeah,
right here?
I
It's
get- see, I
right
got-
here.
I got to get these screenshots of like me holding the can. Let's see, does the can disappear as well? Because that I can just edit that for all the okay. There we go. See,
There you go.
and then
Yeah.
I can just I've got
That's-
every social media post ever for the
Done.
here. I'll
You
do
could just
this.
drop a different can.
Hold on,
and
let
you
me
go.
get it to now. It doesn't want to.
Oh,
Let me
it's starting
see
to
if
eat it.
I can get it to disappear. Oh well. Anyhow, we're gonna do some Beer Guys Radio. We can do some podcasting here. If you have any comments or questions, please do leave it in the chat. We'd love to know what you're drinking, what you think about what we're drinking, what we're talking about here. So with that said, let me get queued up here, guys, and we will get going. I think. Okay, there it is. I thought we've had issues with the software lately, and I thought it had deleted all of our music, but I found it. It popped
That would
up
be
there.
in keeping with how it's been behaving.
In
lately.
keeping with tradition, yeah. All right, guys, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us, having a couple of beers and some conversation. I'm Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Tim. I'm doing good. How's
Good.
it going?
You know, I'm fine. Yeah. So it's cooled down a little bit here in the Atlanta area, and I'm enjoying that. But as is tradition, Brian, as it gets colder, it reminds me of the winter, and I despise winter. So I get a little irritable, not because of the weather now, but because of what the weather will be. It's harbinger, I believe the word is that I'm looking for. But I'm making it through.
You know, it's cold weather is prime drinking season, so you know.
That's the catch-22. The beers this time of year are great, and they
yeah.
just keep getting more greater as the year goes on. But that's the one silver lining for this horrid season of the year. Just brutal. Yeah.
So
Nate,
not a fan of fall.
not a fan. Nate, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. You know, Tim, the more you despise the cold weather, you think the sooner it's just going to get here. So
Yeah.
keep it up. You know, we'll get through winter. We'll march right back into summer before you know it.
Bringing it on there. Bring it on. You know, I love this time of year, you know, when we're dipping into the 60s. It was actually like 59 degrees here a couple mornings ago, and then we're mid 80s in the day, 82ish. It's gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous.
It's wonderful.
But when I get up and it's a little chilly, you know, that 59 in the air and it's a little chilly, that makes me a little irritable. But I'll make it through it, guys. I'm tough, and I will make it through. But
I think the mid 80s are ideal, like low 80s are ideal when there's air movements. Because I realized I go outside, I was like, oh, it's 72. I go outside and there's air, you know, wind or whatever. Like, oh, it's a little crisp out here.
a little brisk.
But when you get it at like 82 and it's a little moving around, like this is perfect. This is fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah. And you know, to be totally hypocritical, I sometimes through the whole winter I won't even wear a jacket. I don't like that either. So I cry about it. It's like, have you seen the meme of the guy driving his bike down the road and he sticks a stick in his own spokes and crashes? That's me. That's me in cold
that's
weather.
you, Tim.
That's
Yeah.
me. But anyhow, guys, let's talk about some beers this week. Brian, what do you have on tap this week?
So I started off with a Weihenstephaner Fest beer as my pregame. It is Fest beer season. We are in September, so I'm happy to break the seal on that myself with a Fest beer. I have moved on to a collaboration between Equilibrium and Parrish called Ghost in the Laboratory. This is batch 3 of that. It's a New England hazy double IPA, and if I'm still sitting upright, I will have perhaps an Oscar Blues Barrel Aged 1050 later in the show. So that's where I'm at, and that is a big beastly double imperial stout. So like I think it's about 12% or something like that. So
Is
at least
that
it
a
comes in
new-
12-ounce cans now. So
It's in 12. Is that the new release of the barrel aged 1050, or
I
is it
believe so.
vintage? Okay,
I believe I got that within the past 2 or 3 months.
gotcha.
Yeah. So that's what I'm up to. What you drinking, Tim?
I have got, and this is in the theme of some of the news we've got here, and this is one for the homies, I'll say, but from Terrapin, I have their double barrel aged red ale. And have either of you guys had this one?
I've
No.
had it. Yeah, it's a good one.
It's phenomenal. It's delicious. And there's chatter here. Some people like to poo poo on Terrapin, but they've got some really phenomenal stuff. Wake and bake, all of
Yeah.
that. Or they do for now. We'll talk more about what's going on there in a bit. But yeah, the double barrel aged red ale, and it's just great. Just fantastic. Nice barrel note to it. The maltiness from the red ale. Delicious. Nate, what are you drinking?
So I started out with my pre-show beer being from Elsewhere. It's Jest, which is their Czech dark lagers, just something nice, crisp, light to get the palate moving in the direction of beer. And then for the show, I'm drinking from Parish. It's my last can of Infinite Ghost, and that's a double New England IPA.
Nice. Brian, you're talking about the cold weather beers. This double barrel red ale is perfect for a fall beer. It's rich, but it's not like a 14% stout. I don't even know what the ABV is. Okay, 12.7. So it's not playing around. It's not joking around here. But yeah, these are the kind of beers this time of year. And I don't even know how old this one is. I got it out of my cellar, aka closet. And so I don't know how vintage this one is.
If that's one I gave you, I picked it up within the past, I want to say, couple of months, maybe it's
Okay.
3 at this point in
Right.
time.
All right.
Yeah, but it may have been sitting around for a little bit. I like that one. I think I picked up a one from like a Total Wine, and I thought, you know what, I need more of these, and so I bought a 4-pack. I think I gave you a couple of them.
Okay, that
a few
may
months
be
back.
where I may have
Yeah.
just not. I put them in the cellar, and then hey, cellar beers.
Yeah,
And
no,
just
they're
move right
great. I
along
think
with
I
that.
have one hidden away in my dead refrigerator, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Brian, we're gonna start with something a little crazy here. We know you and Nate like your cocktails,
Yes,
and it looks like Nate. Is this you or Brian on this?
That's
this
Brian.
it's
That's
me.
Brian. Brian, what in the heck do we have going on here in the cocktail world?
Yeah, I follow the Beer Guys Radio Twitter account follows Punch Drink. Their punchdrink.com is the website. They have a thing out there. They throw out a lot of stuff about cocktails and interesting things, and I'm endlessly fascinated with the stuff that they do. And yeah, they put out a lot of it. So anyway, I became aware of something called the Campari Shakerado, or the Shakerado Campari. I didn't know anything about it. I think I've seen the term Shakerado before, but I didn't know what it was. And this turned out, I tried it. I saw what it was. I saw that it was really easy to do and not a lot of ingredients, which was like, that's an easy no-brainer for Brian. Brian doesn't like a lot of ingredients, a lot of fancy stuff. So it's great for, if you got to like Campari. If you like Campari, this is something you may enjoy. It's really straightforward. It's basically 2 ounces of Campari with a reverse dry shake method. And I'd never heard of this before either, but you basically add your 2 ounces of Campari to a shaker with ice, and you shake it hard for 7 to 10 seconds. This is going to cool it down. It's going to dilute it a little bit. It's going to aerate it a little bit. You strain it. You throw away the ice in that shaker. Then you put it back in the shaker, and you shake it again for 10 seconds. And then you pour it into a glass neat. Nothing else in it. That's it. And the resulting drink tastes like more than just a Campari. It's like a proper Campari cocktail with other things in it. It develops this cool layer of foam on top of it that stays there, like the head on a beer. It doesn't go away. And it's wonderful. It really is good. Campari is great by itself. This turns it into something more. And they did say, I saw some stuff where you can add things like saline to it, which I haven't done, or orange flower water. You can enhance it with that. And I don't know if you really need to do either one of those things. I probably will try it with a little saline the next time. But according to the article, you can try the same basic method with any other Amaro you have out there, but your mileage may vary. It just turns out that Campari really does well with this. And there's on their website, they've got like 4 or 5 other ones that they really recommend for it. So it's very cool. And so even if you don't like Campari, you may find another Amaro out there that you do enjoy that works well with this technique. So really
Okay.
cool stuff. I recommend trying it. And if you do, let me know.
So it's Campari shaken over ice. That's what we just talked about, right?
Shaken
Mhm.
twice, shaken once with
Oh,
ice, but shaken more without.
without ice.
Yeah, and the idea is you're not going to chill it or dilute it as much, because if you shook it for the full like 20 seconds with ice, it'd be really watery. By doing it this way, you limit the amount of dilution. And I usually shoot for 7 seconds and then take 10 seconds on the second one. So minimal dilution, minimal chilling, and it comes out. I'm telling you, it's pretty cool. It's
Okay.
yeah.
All right. The power of science in your liquor.
Nate,
Hmm.
any thoughts on that? Have you tried anything like that?
I've never heard of this before, but I can say I'm hosting a friend on Friday night, so we're gonna try this. Maybe not
Give it a
the
shot.
Campari Shakerado, but I've got probably 15 different Amaros in my house, and so yeah, we're gonna have to play around with this, and I'll report back next week.
Okay. You should try the Campari though, because it is pretty cool. I don't know if the other ones develop that head that stays there, but the Campari does. So
Party Nate likes Campari better than I do, so I'll let him sample that.
okay. Yeah.
Try that one. So somewhat related, Brian. I was poking around on Twitter the other day, and I did see that Michael Tonsmere replied where you had said earlier you were going to try the cocktail inspired beers or beer
Yeah.
inspired cocktails. Have you? And I was curious. Have you tried any of those yet?
No, I forgot. I was out and I was gonna get some you need to get some Malta for one of them. And there's an espresso martini cocktail or espresso martini stout is the idea is basically recreating a stout with cocktail ingredients, except with Malta is kind of like cheating a little bit. But I was going to try it, and I was going to try some other ideas I have. I've got a Cafe Amaro. I have not done it yet, but I got a little chat with him on it, and I mentioned that he really liked the idea of adding the little Amaro for a little extra flavor. And I don't know if he commented on my thought to add a little sherry to replicate the aging of the beer, because I have so many interesting coffee stouts and other things that have aged, and like a lot of them would develop a fun little sherry note. You drop a little in there, you like now you've got an aged coffee stout basically. So I haven't tried it yet. No, it's
Okay.
on my list of things to do. I'd say maybe this weekend, but I think it would be a little tied up for a lot of it. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
a lot
Maybe
of stuff
next
going on.
weekend. Yeah,
Cool. All right. I was curious. I'm curious as well if you get a chance to try those out.
we'll definitely try to.
All right. Well, guys, big news this week. Tilray. And we've seen Tilray
Yeah.
gobbling up breweries. We've talked about it. I think the first one back, it was Afria purchased Sweetwater, then Tilray got in there and they bought a bunch of other breweries in that. The latest acquisitions being Terrapin Brewing Company and some others. So, Sweetwater and Terrapin here out of Georgia. Last week there was some pretty large scale layoffs over there. And Brian, it looks like you dug in and got us a decent bit of information. So what's going on with these Tilray owned breweries?
Yeah, I got a little bit. So they just bought the 4 breweries from Molson Coors, and they're cutting the workforce, like you said. And the reason they say is just they're reducing redundant positions or redundant jobs, which when you have that many breweries together, there's probably going to be some of that, especially in the sales and marketing area, I would imagine. According to an official statement from Tilray, they say they've laid off a limited number of employees across various departments. That sounds pretty innocuous, but we've since learned from the New School website out of Portland that that means the entire innovation team at 10 Barrel has been let go, and that's been confirmed. And both of the 10 Barrel founders, Chris and Jeremy Cox, have also resigned. Tilray has not yet announced any or released any official details about who's been laid off and from where. But we've also, as you alluded to earlier, we've heard rumors about pretty extensive cuts at both Terrapin and Sweetwater here in Georgia. And I think perhaps Terrapin more so than Sweetwater, but it does sound like both have been fairly affected by it from what we can determine.
I can share a little info on Terrapin, and there
Okay.
is some info that's been shared to me that's not finalized yet, so that
Yes.
I can't really speak publicly about it. But it does sound like Terrapin across the entire organization, it impacted around 30 to 40 people
Okay.
from the group. And we know that they really hit the sales team hard there. There's some others that are going to be impacted as well. As you all know, Terrapin ATL Brew Lab, a sponsor of the show here. That our partnership has been impacted, by that. Everything's up in the air right now, and there's been speculation, of course, on the forums, the local beer forums, and people just discussing, what's going to happen now, since Terrapin's no longer a, Miller, Molson, Coors, who I'm not sure who all is in the mix there. But that's who's licensed at Truist Park with the Braves. So, it could impact the brew pub there, and we'll see what goes on with that. But it was a heavy hit, and something that really surprised me. Those in the Georgia beer community know the name Spike Pukowski. Spike and John Cochran were the founders of Terrapin all those years ago. When they were purchased by Miller, then John left and he started Upcountry Brewing in outside of Asheville or up in North Carolina, which is, for those that have listened to the show, that is going to be Griffin and Sphinx Brewing now that Wayne Wombles had purchased. Spike stayed on with Terrapin and that. Spike was one of the people impacted by the layoff. So the founder of the brewery was released, and also Dustin Watts. Dustin was the president of Terrapin. So they cut deep. I mean, when you cut the founder of the company, that's some serious stuff. And I don't know how exactly Spike's taking it. Obviously, if he stayed on board with them, he still cared about the company, wanted to stay there. We've had Spike on the show a few times, talking about Terrapin, and he's at a lot of the events here that we see. So this one hits close to home. We hear about all of these breweries letting people go in their breweries that we love and that, but these are people we know. These are people we know. Some have been with the organization for, Spike since the beginning when it goes to Terrapin, and, others that were kind of assimilated through the organization as they, were purchased and moved things around that have been there for decades. So
we were just hanging with Spike not that long ago, right?
Yeah, not too long ago.
All of his interesting plans and all the cool little, the cool beer projects he was making. I'm like,
yeah,
it's sad. He was still having fun, still coming up with new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Spike will get into something else, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, not the best time to do a project like that, but who knows, man. But yeah, this one's tough. Seeing, friends impacted by it. And, like someone commented on one of the forums, we thought Tilray was the good guys. We see all these big beer companies buying up these smaller breweries, and it happens time and time again. We saw Monster, gut Cigar City Brewing, and we're seeing it with Terrapin and Sweetwater and these breweries that once they're acquired by a big company, obviously Tilray has shown that that's exactly what they are, just like anyone else. They're just a piece of the business. They don't have the same attachment to something, like a Spike would, or anybody else that's been there a while. If it doesn't look right on paper, that's it. Where someone who had an emotional attachment may push through tougher times to try and make it to the other side, for better or worse, to be honest with you. But with a company like Tilray, that's not there. And when you acquire so many breweries, there's absolutely no doubt you're going to have jobs repeated. You're going to have overlap there. So, from a corporate perspective, I guess it's a little naive to say, hey, we thought you were the good guys. If you get half a dozen, 10 breweries in your folder, your portfolio, you're going to have some duplication of efforts there. That's just unnecessary expense.
Sure.
So I get that, but that's what I know right now that can be shared, at least from the Terrapin side of things.
I will say that I have a sneaking suspicion that Tilray on paper will still do better than Monster. It seems like Monster is doing all the things you don't like about the big companies that buy out a place, but also not doing the smart, like not using their properties well. So far, Tilray has performed well on paper. So I'm curious to see what they do. I really, this does bother me a little bit. I'm like, that's
sure.
It seems punitive almost. I'm like, dang, man, dang.
I talked to one of the people that's being impacted by this, and he's like, I've been here 18 years, so it's something you dedicate your life to, a company, to a position, to seeing things grow. And then they're like, hey, we no longer have a need for you there. And it could happen to any of us, really. You know,
Yeah.
any kind of merger acquisition or any kind of change like that definitely could. But like you said, Brian, at 10 Barrel, you know, we don't know the folks at 10 Barrel personally, but there were a couple names there. I forget the names right now, but that were well known in the industry, you know, and
Yeah, I forget her
part of that
name.
innovation team.
Yeah, I forget her-
Award-winning brewers, really, really well known. So
one of the
eh,
most award-winning brewers of like in their innovation team. I forget the name. Like maybe of all time in the U.S. It's like they just gone like that. That's the kind of decision a company makes when their main business interest or their knowledge is like in weed or something else that's not beer. I'm like, I
yeah,
think you'd hang on to somebody like that. There's value. There's cachet there that could be used. You could use that in part of your marketing and use obviously producing good beer. So like that seems like something you'd want to hang on to even if you were cutting some other stuff. So
I
it
would
seems a
think,
little
man.
tone
But
deaf and a little like they're making it seems like a mistake. It really does. I mean,
craft beer is a lot about the soul of a brewery. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are attached to, you know, I tell you what, Brian, I got some Entenmann's. They're these cool things. It's like a brownie, but the top half is a chocolate chip cookie.
oh,
They're
okay.
delightful. They're really good. But there's no emotional attachment to Entenmann's. And I doubt there's many people that do have that attachment. Maybe if they have people working there and that, but it's not like it's Duke's Mayo. Those people are just weird.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yes.
with craft beer, every craft brewery has its fans, even ones that we may think are not awesome. There's people who absolutely love them and would be devastated to see them close. You know, you've got your local breweries, and then you get something like you get a place like a Sweetwater or a Terrapin, and you've got people who talk about Sweetwater when they remember the old location, you know, where it was like a construction trailer in the parking lot for the offices and the small operation when Freddie Bench was, you know, out there lugging around bags of grain. They're massive now. Here in Atlanta, they've got what I would call a campus where their brewery is. You know, takes up
Oh
the
yeah.
better portion of a city block. They have birthed an entire industry where they opened up at. But they were the small guys with two people there and working out of a trailer at one point. And there's people here that have definitely been with them through all of that. And you know, seeing it change, it's just a punch in the gut. Craft beer, it's hurting our feelings a lot here lately, man.
Yeah,
It's
it's
been rough.
We've been punched right in the feelings.
We've been damaged. We're going to need
Yeah.
therapy over this if this keeps up, man.
Tanya Cornett is the name
Mhm.
of the
From 10 Barrel.
10 Barrel.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
award-winning
okay.
brewer that I don't know personally, but from what I read is possibly the most winningest brewer ever or something like that.
Okay.
Apparently you've really racked them up. So yeah, that's seems like a weird mistake to make. I'm like, you want to hang
Yeah,
on to people
knows,
like
man?
that. I'm like, that's quality people, I think. So anyway, I don't know.
But anyhow, that's our Tilray craft breweries closing, mergers, acquisitions, layoffs. Craft beer continues to get punched in the gut
Yes.
every week, man. Every week. Can we
It's
hit
rough
the
on.
rewind button? Go back to when we launched the show in 2016. It was just
Shoot.
you just
was
got
a
on
lot
the
more
air. We
fun.
just got on and got excited every week. It's,
Yeah.
You
hey,
know,
73 new breweries opened up. Everybody's doing awesome.
and I think that at that point in time, the hazy IPA had not really become a thing. Like they existed in limited. There were some New England IPAs that were hazy, but I don't think an entire category existed yet in 2016
That
for
would've been-
hazy at all.
especially for us here in Georgia. It would have definitely become Creature Comforts was on episode 1 of Beer
Yes.
Guys Radio, and they were new kids on the block at the time.
Mhm.
So, you know, they came in with Tropicalia, and that issued in or ushered in the tropical IPAs, you know, that type. But that's not like the hazy New England style beer.
No, it's not.
So
I think I used to call them like the East Coast IPA because
East
we still
Coast
had a
IPA,
concept
yeah.
of like a West Coast IPA, and this was like wasn't hazy, wasn't anything, but it was juicier, not
Yeah.
as bitter, but it wasn't really the hazy, soft whatever that you get in New England. So it's like the in between. But I
Yeah.
guess I haven't used that term in a while, and I don't even know if it really is a point to it anymore. But
I won't throw anybody under the bus with this, but when the word of the hazy IPA got to Georgia, when it made it down here that these are cool, these are the thing, these are the trend, these are hot, a few breweries attempted to make them by just reading like blog posts and such, Untapped reviews and blog posts.
yes,
We had some pretty embarrassing attempts at Northeast IPAs when they first got to Georgia. Now I would say we do some pretty darn respectable examples of the style here now, but it didn't start off that way. And the same thing when the 15 minutes of brewed IPA was going.
Oh, yeah.
We actually went to a brew pub here that was one of the first ones that had a quote brewed IPA, and they served it to us, and it was a saison. I mean, unquestionably a saison. I'm like, hey, I ordered the brewed IPA. They're like, that's what that is. I'm like, I'm like, are you sure? I didn't want to just be blunt and be like, no, this is most definitely not a brewed. They're like, yeah, that's our brewed IPA. So I was like, okay.
I wanted
All
that
right.
I wanted that to be a thing and continue to be a thing because I like the
Yeah.
concept of the style. The really crisp, the higher ABV,
Effervescence.
and like effervescent, and perhaps even like a little winey character to it. I don't
Yeah.
remember if that was necessarily part of it or not. But man, I really like that idea, and I really wish that would have caught on. That sure would be preferable to seltzer to me.
To seltzer.
But yeah.
No, Brian, your opinion is wrong.
No,
obviously.
we got White Claw. So
yeah. The best I can do is White Claw.
No.
Yeah. Well, Brian,
I do not accept your offer, Tim.
No, declined. Some other big news in the brewing world, and we actually had Anderson Valley on the show not too terribly long ago. Sometimes my remembrance of time isn't good. I'll say not too long ago, and they're like, that was 2002. So
yes.
But we spoke to them, and they're up for sale right now.
Yeah. So the Brewbound tells us that Anderson Valley has officially been listed for sale sometime recently. I'm not sure exactly when. The asking price for the 36-year-old brewery is $7.9 million. And I don't know these days if that's a lot or a little. I guess
that sounded inexpensive to me. Like
yeah.
$8 million for a brewery. Now, the one comment I did see, and you may mention this, Brian, it didn't include real estate. And I think that could be a big part of.
There's an interesting thing where I think there's according to what I read, there's $5.4 million worth of brewing equipment, furniture, and a limited amount of like real estate, maybe the brewery itself and some packaged, some inventory, some packaged stuff. But there's also, I think, another $5.4 million worth of real estate that's not included. So there's an additional amount of stuff that they're not going to be selling. But that also includes the solar power system, that we've talked about with them on, and there's a self-contained water treatment system, and the brewery has a annual capacity of 100,000 barrels annually. So yeah, that's what an annual capacity is how much you could do annually. That's good to know. Yes.
Thanks for the clarification, man.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that annually is yearly. Yes. According to CEO Kevin McGee, they're already in early discussions with several interested parties. If the sale goes through, this will be the third time the brewery has changed hands. Kevin McGee bought it back in 2019 from Trey White, who bought it from the founders in 2010. According to the BizQuest listing, the stated reason for Anderson Valley being sold is the owner is retiring. And I didn't see that mentioned in the articles, but it's there in the listing. We talked to Kevin McGee about 5 months ago. I looked it up, episode 408.
All right.
And if you'd like to hear more about what's going on at Anderson Valley, what they're looking like today, just everything, check that episode out. But yeah, it's interesting. When we talked to him, there was no indication that they were thinking about selling at that time. They seemed like they were, just doing really well, just overall. So, but if he's retiring, he's retiring,
Yeah, and that was my thinking as well when I saw that they were for sale, is that there was no indication. Now, that's not to say that he wasn't doing some pondering when he talked to us, but from our discussions that it seemed like, hey, we're hunkering down, we're sticking to the basics, we know what we're doing, we're not getting caught up in flash in the pan trends, and we're rocking right along. We're like, great. So now 5 months ago, with the way beer is gone, a lot can change then, and it may just be like, you know what, this isn't worth it right now.
So Brewbound, I believe they did make mention that when he originally bought the brewery, he and I think his family or a group of friends and investors bought it. He was looking at a multi-generational play. So it
Right.
sounded like the idea was to pass it down to somebody. I'm guessing that somebody decided they didn't want it.
I don't want to
So
do this.
yeah,
I don't want to
I'm
do this.
guessing that's what happened
Understandable.
too.
Things
Yeah.
happen, man. Things happen. And Brian, since you have just made your effort to find all the terrible news this week,
I did.
Modern Times, their OG spot is closing. And if I read correctly, they're going to contract only. Is that right?
Yeah. So they've had a really rough go of it. Modern Times grew they were such an incredible success story. They grew all throughout the 2010s. It just a reckless expansion. They eventually were sued by their lenders and sold to Maui Brewing Company to form Craft Ohana with the two together. Now they are closing the original Modern Times brewery. I think it's the last Modern Times property out there. And all of that beer will be brewed on a contract basis by AleSmith Brewing. The reason for the shutdown or the reasons are all the common ones, including, slow craft beer sales, stiff competition, increasing costs, but also some interesting details. It turns out that Modern Times brewing facility was in really bad shape due to a lack of proper maintenance. And that led to there being outages that decreased the brewery's efficiency. So that facility wasn't doing really well, and which is crazy to think that facility is maybe just 10 years old. I think they were founded in 2013, so 11 years old, and it's already not doing so well. So in short, Craft Ohana decided it would just be more effective to have somebody else brew the beer instead of having to maintain or upgrade that facility. As a result of the closure, 57 Craft Ohana jobs will be cut. So there will be quite a few people that will not be working anymore. That's unfortunate.
It's kind of
Yeah, it's kind of the
ironic,
way things
though.
are going these days. So
Kind of ironic, though. Ohana means family.
oh yeah, that's right, doesn't it? Oof.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang.
I will say this. I'm surprised to hear, Brian, that their brew house was in a state of disrepair, because with the quality of their beer and the reputation they had out there, I figured they would have ran a tight ship. On the flip side of that, if you're being contract brewed, if AleSmith is doing it, that's a pretty good sign, in my opinion. With the quality of what AleSmith does, at least it's not they're not contract brewing to Bob and Ted's corner contract brewery there.
Yeah.
So
And it could be that that's kind of being added to the list of things, like a laundry list of reasons why they need to close. And maybe the maintenance wasn't so bad. We're just taking their word for it. There was also a note in there that didn't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of real estate development in the area. And it sounded like it was bringing a lot of people into the area, but it was listed as a reason why they needed to get out. And I'm like,
okay.
really? And I'm like, so I didn't really mention it before because it didn't make it all any sense to me at all. But
None
yeah,
of this
I don't know.
makes any sense.
Yeah, at least they chose a good partner to brew for them. AleSmith that's a good choice. So
Yeah.
theoretically, the beer will still be fantastic.
In theory, man, I think that there's a good chance of that. Well, Brian, why don't we take this time to thank our sponsor?
Yes. So the temperatures have dropped a bit, and we're well in September. Everybody, check your calendar, make sure I'm right on that. So my Truck and Tap picks for this week do actually include Oktoberfest beers, but not pumpkin beers, because I'm not feeling those yet, and I may never be feeling those again. But that said, if you do enjoy pumpkin beers, Truck and Tap has you covered this week. Most locations are featuring Heavy Seas Bourbon Barrel Aged Greater Pumpkin on tap. If I were going to drink a pumpkin beer right now, I would want it to come from a bourbon barrel. So there you have it, people that like pumpkin beers. But now for my beer picks for this week. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going with the beer we had when we dropped by this weekend, the Creature Comforts Change of Address, which is an excellent Vienna lager. It's just the perfect beer for this weather. In fact, I would be drinking one right now if I had one, but I do not. At the Duluth location, my pick is Reformation's Revival Oktoberfest. I've never had it, but the beer list describes it as malty, complex with notes of toffee and a hint of coffee. And that sounds great to me. At the Alpharetta location, I'm going to have to go with New Realm's Bavarian Prince Oktoberfest. It's a Marzen that I believe won our Oktoberfest blind tasting one year. So I always look forward to that. And finally, at Truck and Tap Lawrenceville, my pick is Untitled Arts Chocolate Malt Amore Pastry Stout, because like we like to say, stouts are for summer. And believe it or not, it is still technically summer, so stouts are still on. They're also good for fall and winter, but for summer as well. So there you have it. For all the latest details about events and beer and cocktails and food trucks, check out truckandtap.com. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Thank you, Truck and Tap. Yeah, it was a good time this weekend, Brian. The weather was nice,
Yes.
and downtown Woodstock, we walked right up on the sidewalk to the serving window there, got a beer right on the street because we're in what they call an entertainment district there.
Yes.
We walked over to the park and grabbed us a picnic table in the park and hung out. And that was a dark and rich Vienna lager.
Yeah, it really was.
Surprisingly dark for a Vienna lager, but man, it was really good. But unsurprising, Truck and Tap had some nice beers on.
And that window was really popular. There were a
It
lot
was.
of people
It was
hanging
busy
around
there.
getting beers there. Yeah, that's good to see. I like seeing that.
It is, man. It was lively down there, that's for sure. Well, Brian, we've heard all kinds of chatter about NA beer. Who's drinking it? Who's not drinking it? Are they growing? Is it impressive that their growth is what it is, or is it not impressive? More news and some changing viewpoints on NA beer this week.
Yeah. So some interesting new information from we got new data from data analytics firm, the International Wine and Spirits Record, IWSR. I see their acronym pop up occasionally. Apparently, millennials are the driving force behind non-alcoholic drink sales in the U.S., not Gen Z, which is what I think all of us have been led to believe. It's Gen Z who's really into health and really into non-alcoholic stuff. So overall, 13% of American drinkers report to drinking both alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. It jumps up a little bit for Gen Z at 15% of them report drinking both alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, but it goes up a lot higher to 22% when you get to millennials that drink both alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. As for Gen X, we're sitting at 11%. I'm part of the 11% that drinks both, but there's not many of us that do it. The data also suggests that millennials are pretty agnostic about their alcoholic beverages. They are the driving force behind non-alcoholic beer, non-alcoholic wine, and spirits. And their numbers are growing. In April of 2024, this April, 61% of American non-alcoholic beer drinkers were millennials, which is up from 45% in 2023. They're also 59% of the consumers of non-alcoholic wine and 66% of consumers for non-alcoholic spirits. So they they'll drink anything non-alcoholic. And the interesting thing is they're mixing it up. They really are, from what I read, they are the generation that is currently doing the best. I think has seen the most improvement of all of the generations. And as a result, I think they're more likely to go out. In fact, they are going out more often. And to balance out going out more often, they're mixing in a lot more non-alcoholic beverages to kind of maintain things. So they're kind of being smart about it. Yeah. So that seems to be the indication. Everybody else is not doing quite as well, and we're just drinking beer, I think. So
just drinking up, man. Us Gen Xers, man, they're only at 11%.
Yeah.
But that we talked about it before. When we first started covering non-alcoholic beer, we got some, I wouldn't call it hate, but we got a little disdain for the fact that we were drinking NA beer and wondering why we were doing that. Brian, I see what's in your hand. I'm gonna let you talk about it because I know you're excited. What you got there?
I found it. I was looking for some beers. I needed to pick up an Oktoberfest. I didn't have any. I found Deschutes Black Beet Porter non-alcoholic, and I drank one this afternoon. It's good. It's a little different than Black Beet Porter. It got a little extra sweetness to it. So I'm part of the 11% that will drink both. I was really excited about this, and I couldn't wait to get it cold and drink it. So
did it meet expectations? Be honest with me, man. Be honest. I
could tell something was up with it. So I wanted something where I couldn't tell at all. And it wasn't like a big thing, but I was slightly disappointed. Like I could tell that it tasted like maybe not all the sugars had been fermented out. Like it wasn't quite where the other one is. That said, that's not bad. I think it's great. And I really enjoyed drinking it. Yeah. And I got to tell you that the gnats in my house really enjoyed drinking it too, because there were like four of them in the bottom of it. After I finished. So that's not that's just a testament to how good this is. Even the Nats love it.
Is that a testament? Is that a
No, not
glowing
really.
recommendation there? Yeah, I'm
No,
not
that's
sure.
just
I'm
that's
not
just
sure that
me.
that's it.
If
Yeah.
I set a beer down anywhere and there's a gnat within a half mile,
Oh, they
it will
find you.
it will
Yeah.
find my glass and die in it. It's just, but I did notice like there were a bunch in the bottom. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah,
If we were all sitting at a table drinking beers, you would be the person that they would go to first.
I would be.
That's
Yeah.
always been the case. Well, Brian, kind of some seasonal information here. We know as baseball winds down, football season's kicking off here. Everybody's talking. College is big here in the South in general. We've got our SEC teams and that, so there's a lot of chatter there going on. And the NFL season is kicking off.
Yes.
In that vein, on that topic, bookies.com did some studying of what it costs to attend an NFL game. And they gave some numbers for a family of 4, throwing in stuff like hot dog prices, soda prices, parking, and of course, beer prices. And it sounds like in general, depending on where you're going, man, you may need to take out a little small loan to go to take your family to a ball game.
Yeah, if you get the tickets, obviously, your family of 4, you get the parking, you get the 4 hot dogs, you get 2 beers for the parents, they're 16-ounce beers, and you get 2 sodas for the kids. That's going to cost you $808.20 on average across all of the stadiums. Now, it's going to vary quite a bit, so some will be a lot more expensive and others won't be, but that's only $21.37 of that actually goes to the beers. That's 2 16-ounce beers, or about $10.69 a beer on average. By far, Washington and Las Vegas charge the most for beer. At a Commanders game, a beer will set you back $16.50. So that's more than $1 an ounce for that beer. And I don't even know what
those
beer
are
that is.
16 ounces that the pricing's based on, right? Okay.
Yeah. That's more than $1 an ounce. And at a Raiders game, it's $15 for that 16-ouncer. You can get the same beer for less than half the cost at games in Detroit, Cincinnati, New York, Minnesota, and Cleveland, between about $5.63 in New England, up to about $7.25 in Detroit. So it's amazing how much difference the prices are. And I thought I was going to try to predict what places would be the most expensive, and I really couldn't. I'm like, I wouldn't have thought that. I don't know. I really thought that here in Georgia we would rank in there, because I've heard that we have pretty decent prices for beer, but we were not in the low range. We were mid tier. So
Okay.
yeah,
I guess because I always heard that too. People have always talked about the concession prices at NB Stadium are not too bad. Now, you mentioned that Detroit was one of the cheapest on beer, but don't let that fool you, because looking at this article, and again, that's at bookies.com, and the article is called Cost Skyrocket to Attend NFL Games in 2024. But if you're going to a Lions game and you're taking your family of 4, all in, the average price to attend, no, I'm sorry, this isn't average. That's figuring the cheapest ticket.
Oh, the cheapest okay.
Ticket, parking, 2 16-ounce beers, 2 sodas, and 4 hot dogs at the Detroit Lions is $1,611.96.
Wow. So it's interesting.
$1,600 to go to a Lions game.
My, how can anybody do that? I
don't know, man.
And that's one game. That's like one weekend.
I don't think the family of 4 that they're talking about here may be their target market if it's costing you $1,600 to go to a game.
Yeah. Oh man, let's
see who's okay. You know what? Shout out to Jacksonville Jaguars. All in again, same thing. Tickets, parking, beer, hot dogs, $371.79. That's not bad. You're less than $100 ahead there to go out to see an NFL game. So that's not too bad. Even the Saints, who are, popular team, they're $381. That's again, cheapest tickets there. Man, that's the cheapest tickets at the Lions.
Yeah, seriously.
What am I missing here? I'm not a football fan, but what am I missing with the Lions that's making them? But the most expensive teams, Lions, Las Vegas Raiders, the Philadelphia Eagles, Green Bay Packers, and the 49ers. And all of those over $1,000. Nine of the teams, it's going to be over $1,000 for you to go out and see a game.
Did you get a load of the parking charges at the San Francisco 49ers? It's $105.
Yeah, okay. That does
Basically
surprise me.
$106. So the
Yeah.
article did mention that the with everything else going up, and I think it went up about, what did they say, 80%, 20% over the previous year, the entire cost average. The actual concession price didn't go up as much as everything else did. So your actual tickets probably went up a considerable amount more. And the concessions, because I remember seeing the average for the 16-ounce beer being not too far off from $10 for a while. So actually, I don't think it went up by too terribly much, but I can't even imagine $1,500 for 4 tickets. Crazy.
You know, speaking of parking, when I first moved to Atlanta, lived in an apartment complex down on the Chattahoochee River, Brian, way down yonder on the Chattahoochee. But my upstairs neighbor, his business is he owned parking lots in Atlanta, and that's it. He owned like I don't know how many, but a handful of parking lots. And if you've ever went to, in city parking, some of them have a little, I think they've all went to phone apps or some kind of kiosk thing where you pay with your card now. But years ago, you'd fold up a $5 bill and poke it in a little hole there. But it's a very hands-off business. And he drove a Porsche Carrera, Brian, lived in a really nice apartment, drove a Porsche Carrera, and did almost no work because it's a parking lot, and those don't require a ton of work.
Yeah, if I had it all to do over again, I think I would consider buying a lot, because you don't have tenants that complain about the air conditioning going out, or a backed up toilets. It's a lot.
That's it, man.
It's as long as it doesn't develop a sinkhole, which is not guaranteed here in Atlanta. As long as it doesn't do that, you're good. And like, you just sit there and people put their cars on it and they give you money to do it, and then they leave.
That's
and
it.
How great is that?
Even if you hire an attendant, one parking spot an hour is going to cover the cost that you're paying the attendant, because it's not like they're paying those guys a ton of money.
And that's even if even if they're ripping you off a little bit. And I always wondered if the guys that were there, like, hey, let's skim a little, like,
little
it's
skimmy skim.
The sign says it's $5. No, sorry, it's an event day. It's 10.
Yeah.
Like, he's taking.
But now
fine.
they're even a bigger racket, because you got things like Park Mobile where you just go there and you put in a number and that's it. They don't even have a machine there to collect money at some of these.
Yeah, the
racket, Brian. It's a racket.
I like the old system, and you notice the technology has made this obsolete, but you used to be able to pull into a spot and just, if somebody else hadn't finished out the time, you just took over the time, and then you would add more onto that time. No. That was clearly a problem. We need to make sure we double bill on that time. So I love the technology very quickly address that issue.
I heard at one time, or in some locations or whatever, like back when parking meters are a thing, where you seriously put nickels, dimes, and quarters into a meter to pay for your parking, that topping off someone else's meter was illegal. Like, if you saw someone running low and you're like, you know what, I'm going to throw a quarter in here, they're like, nope, you can't do that. And I'm like, how ridiculous is that?
Really? Like a good Samaritan, like hooking somebody up with a quarter?
No,
man.
Can't do that. Can't do that. That's against it. And
that's something that should have been taken to court, because I can't see how that could possibly be supported. But
it's crazy.
We should start a business. Is ridiculous.
Yeah. We should start a business and get us a couple parking lots, Brian. Let's see what
there you go.
Undercut everybody else in the neighborhood and just keep churning cars in and out there. I think the next thing we'll see is like elevators, like the stacks where like they can fit 2 to a spot, rather than a full-blown parking garage. You just pull in, they jack you up, and they put somebody else in, or like a carousel thing, maybe.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like it like a Carvana thing where they have like
like the Carvana thing, exactly. That's it. Just go in and say, my car's in B3, and they vend you out like you're a bag of Doritos.
Yeah, and once a week we'll live stream the car lot just for an hour. Just put that out. That'll be the car lot podcast. We won't be there. It'll just be the lots. You can look at the lot for an hour. I
feel like that has potential to be a Netflix show. The lot.
The lot.
It just shows going around taking care of parking lots and that. It could be one of those shows that you watch to go to sleep, because it's like really nothing ever happens here. I go around and check it out.
That sounds incredibly tedious, but also sounds like every other reality show
yeah.
out there. Like
Yeah.
the most mundane things. But
Terrible.
somehow people are just glued to it, just absolutely glued to it.
Engrossed, absolutely wrapped
Yeah.
up and invested in it. Absolutely. Well, y'all, that about wraps it up for this week. We appreciate you coming and hanging out with us. We hope you all have a fantastic week. If you dig what we're doing here, you know what? Tell a friend. Tell a friend to tune into Beer Guys Radio Show. If you really like what we're doing, we'd love your support in Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/Beer Guys. We're going to get you in the Discord chat to talk about all kinds of stuff. We'll send you some cool swag, and you'll have our utmost appreciation. But with that said, we hope you all have a really good week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers. Groovy.
Yes, we made it.
Groovy. We did it.
Yeah.
Looks like we made it. We all thanks for hanging out with us. Have a good one. If you're in the Atlanta area and the hurricane does not get us, Brian and Nate will be at Le Bon Beer Festival in Duluth, Georgia. It's a wonderful festival with some funky fermented beers and oysters and
Yes.
that. Unfortunately, I cannot attend, but they will be there holding it down. I think Smalls mentioned she may go.
She
as
might
well,
go.
so-
She said
I
she
need
got
to-
tickets to something else, like a show or something.
She
No,
did. She got some. Okay,
But that's for
gotcha.
January though, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
The one.
okay.
Yes. Okay. So
Smalls might be there.
at least Brian and Nate, provided the weather behaves there. But y'all have a good one. Take it easy. We'll see you next week.